Actually, the morning of April 18th, we were officially part of Operation Praying Mantis. We had witnessed this particular Iranian frigate attacking a defenseless passenger cruiser just weeks before, but we couldn't do anything about it. Mid-morning, we heard reports over the 1MC speaker in the ship, and the A6s were actually attacking the Iranian frigates. And this is an A6. We heard reports of the A6 making attack runs on some Iranian fast frigates, which is the type of ship I was on. They were being attacked, and they returned the fire and actually sank about 4 or 5 of these ships. I was very ecstatic, but I was also thinking in the back of my mind that if the Iranians wanted to fight back, we were the only targets that they had because we were up there by ourselves. I wasn't a very good person then in 1988. I was in sin, I was a drunkard, I was a womanizer, I was living for myself. That's all I cared about. I was God's enemy, quite frankly. Later that afternoon, we heard on the 1MC, General Quarters, General Quarters. This is not a drill. General Quarters, General Quarters. All hands man your battle stations. That's when we knew that we had silkworm missiles fired at us. It was about to happen, and I knew that I was correct about that voice in the back of my head. We didn't even have a view of the outside. We were just in the hangar. All we could hear was a 1MC conversation between the OOD, officer on deck, and the FC, the fire control. And the first thing we had heard was the missile was 25 miles inbound. The officer of the deck barked out orders to the fire control to get a missile on the rail, get a missile on the rail, shoot the missile. And the fire control guy was saying, sir, we can't shoot at this. We didn't have a radar lock. Then they started shooting chaff up in the air, and the chaff is little metal particles trying to confuse the incoming missiles. But that didn't work either. The FC comes on and notifies us that the missile is 20 miles inbound. And the officer of the deck, his voice became very frantic at this point. We need to fire something at this missile. But the fire control kept saying, sir, we can't fire. We don't have a radar lock on the target. Then the voice of doom, I like to call him, this FC comes on, says missile 15 miles inbound. Then the OOD was asking for the Sea Whiz, get the Sea Whiz ready. And what the Sea Whiz is kind of like a Gatling gun. It's designed specifically for this type of situation. It fires 2,000 rounds a minute, and again, it's radar controlled. He says, sir, we can't fire that either. Then the voice of doom comes on and says, 10 miles, missile 10 miles inbound, all hands brace for shock. That's when I knew it was over. Yeah. Helpless. I just had a helpless feeling because there was literally nothing I could do, nothing. I was sitting there in the hangar, couldn't see anything that was going on. I was listening to the 1MC conversation between these two persons, and I was helpless. I knew my life had ended. And I couldn't think of anything to do. All I could think of was pray. That's when I prayed, dear God, I know my life has meant nothing up to this point. I know I'm a sinful man, and I know where I'm going. And I don't deserve a second chance, God, but I'm sorry.
They're launching chapter this time. That's come on, okay, come on.
Sea Whiz ready? Yes, fire from Sea Whiz. Sea Whiz is ready, full fire on. Yeah, 270. We're trying.
ICC combat, missile is 30 miles.
Shoot! It doesn't matter if that's the way out. No, get a bird out there now. We don't have to go on fire, sir. We can't fire without it over fire. can. Fire a chaff as soon as you can. Make sure we're ready to go guns, okay? Can't get a lock in the communication. 057, 10 miles. Red 3, 057, 10 miles. Red 3.
Missile inbound on his base shot.
And that's when the gun, the 3-inch gun on the top of the hangar started going off. Bang, 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 bang. 9 shots in total. And then it went totally silent. I thought, is this it? Is this what hell is? Doomed to a ghost ship with these guys floating around forever? And that's when we heard one MC say, relax, brace. What had happened was that 3-inch cannon, the guy firing this 3-inch cannon is inside of a room where you cannot see the outdoors at all. No windows, no anything. All they had was a bearing. And then he fired those 9 shots. And one of those 9 shots hit the lead missile, and the percussion from that missile blew the second missile off and landed behind our ship 300 yards.
Relax, brace.
1 in a million at least. Man can't make that shot. It's hard to find the words to describe that. I was relieved. At the same time, I knew that God had personally intervened and saved me, 230 other people, but me from certain death. And I knew my life had to change. The life that I had been living, the sinful life beforehand, of caring about nobody but myself. And since that happened, there were a couple years later, I met my wife, Lori, and we were married, and we came back to San Antonio in '93 and started really searching for God, going from different churches to different churches. And then we were invited to our current church in '97, and we became disciples and were baptized later that year in '97. And since then, my life has just dramatically changed. My daughters have both been baptized, and now I serve as an elder in the church here in San Antonio. And it was that one day that changed my life. Now there's one question you will have to answer. What would your response be?